When you think viral, you think 1 million or 2 million or 3 million. For us, it was 60K, and that's 7x our revenue. This is what worked.
Meet Natalie Barbu, a content creator turned entrepreneur who's going to reveal her secrets to building a 7-figure business.
Downloads does not matter. Signups does not matter. Who has a big enough problem that they are willing to pay for this? That's gonna be the growth metric.
And how to use social media to break through in any dream. If I want to grow my brand through social media in 2026, what do I need to do?
Every single business needs to have a creator. If you're comfortable being in front of the camera, build in public. If you look back at Fortune 500 companies, they didn't share the behind the scenes. So now the next wave, you're gonna be able to see the start of it.
Today is the day that Rella has launched, and oh my God.
What's the anatomy of a good hook?
Something that says,
We have to try this.
we had $25,000 left in the bank. We were gonna have to shut down the company. It was my identity as a founder. I didn't know where to go from here. I didn't know what the next year would look like. And 3 days later, that video went viral. I remember reloading our subscriptions, and everyone on that first page was the same day. And I was like, am I reading that right? I'm like, this is a bug. And it didn't stop. We went from making $3,500 in October. In November, we made over $21,000.
And then 3 months later.
4 months later, we hit 2 million.
So what happened next? Guys, I am super excited to announce, but we have this series called What's Your Dream, where we help people make their dreams come true. Now, we don't do these very often because, well, they're very time consuming, but we have just completed one of them and we are looking for our next dream to support. Now, if this sounds like you and you have a big dream that you need support in, let us know down below in the comments and you may just hear from one of us. All right, guys, let's get back to the video. As a whole, what do you wish that people knew in business?
This is a good question because there's so many things that I could tell you. But for us, one of the biggest things was making a very clear mission about who we're for. So instead, when you're thinking about your business, a lot of times you'll use another business to compare it to. So for us, we really model ourselves after Notion. And Notion's audience is everyone. Like everyone could use Notion. And we were like, well, we'll be for everyone on social media. So anyone that wants to use social media as a business, whether you work on a podcast, as a content creator, influencer, talent manager, social media manager, in-house team, no matter who it is, you can use Rella. And that was such a mistake because when you're first starting out, you don't really have an identity. So because we were so broad, no one knew who we were for. We built a Frankenstein of a product, I always say, because we added these features for all of these different types of people. And then sometimes influencers would use us and be like, wait, what is this feature over here? And we'll be like, oh, don't worry about that. That's not for you. And it's like, oh, then why is it in the app? And it's like, oh, well, it's for this other subset of audience. And vice versa, it would just confuse people and it caused churn. No one knew who we were for, so they would just, delete the app, not use us, not pay for us, not recommend us because they were even confused about who we were for. And then when we launched Rella 2.0, we decided we're going to be for social media managers, and that's it. And that made the biggest difference. And we had investors tell us this. We had advice that was like, start small, start small, start small. But that limiting belief or whatever it is of being like, well, if I start small, then I'm missing out on this big opportunity of everyone else that could possibly use us. And that really hurt us. So I would say to anyone, start as small as possible. And then once you do a good job with that really small group of people, then expand from there.
But how do you identify which is the right group of people to start with?
So when we first started, we were specifically for influencers. And that was our very, very, very first person. Then we realized, oh, influencers aren't paying us. They're not sticking around. Let's be for influencers and blank. And then same thing, they weren't really sticking around. They didn't see us. Okay, so we're going to add another group of people. So I think you can test who you're for, but only one at a time. Don't test everyone at once or else it's going to become this big mess. But the question we asked ourselves was, okay, influencers weren't paying for us. So that was clear. They weren't paying for us. They weren't using us. Anytime we showed it to an influencer, they would say, oh my God, love it. This is exactly what I need. And then we'd be like, okay, great. Here it is. Crickets. No one would use us. So I think what we realized was there is a difference between saying that someone needs something and saying that they have the problem. But then once you start testing it and putting it in the market and asking for a credit card and they don't start doing it, then you know that the willingness to pay isn't there. And if you're not making money as a business, you have a hobby. Because of that, we were like, okay, well, influencers aren't paying us. So that's when we started asking ourselves, who has the biggest problem? And who is willing to pay for this problem? And then those two together led us to social media managers and teams.
I think most cases people try to change behavior thinking that it's a lot easier to do that versus just seeing where behavior is already paying for it and then going there because it'll be a lot. It's like almost like going with a current, right?
Yeah, and I completely agree because for so long I was like, this is so much better than your spreadsheet that you're using. Like, why are you not using this? And it was too hard to change the behavior of people. And realistically, are you going to change the behavior of the masses in the short amount of time that you have for your runway or your funding? Unless your product is like 10x better, then it's probably not going to happen. Like the reason why the iPhone or ChatGPT really changed consumer behavior is because it was so good. So for a lot of first-time founders, I would recommend, instead of saying like our product needs to be 10x better than my competitors, your customers' pain points need to be 10x bigger than you think it should be. That's how you can kind of see like, is this a big enough pain point for my audience? Is that even though this product kind of glitches sometimes and isn't the best yet, people are still using this over the existing tools that are out there because we're solving this problem. We have white space in the market. And that's what we found at Rella, was that the pain point of social media managers and teams was so deep that even though our product wasn't the absolute best in terms of, you know, we had bugs and sometimes it glitched and whatever, it was still better than what they were currently doing.
How do you know you have a good business idea when you haven't tested the pain point yet?
I think there's a lot you can do before you launch or before you spend time on it. So building up wait lists, talking to customers, and actually seeing how they interact in the day-to-day, having interviews with them, asking them, watching their vlogs, watching their content, and you having to make that decision of like, is this delusional in me thinking they'll actually use this? Like, because I love it and I would use it? Or is this something they would actually, like, I could actually see fitting in here?
What if they steal your idea if you post it online?
I don't think stealing an idea is something you need to worry about. It might be a hot take, but I always think that if you are the person with the idea, if you're the one that's already been obsessed with this and done research and started making moves, it's going to be hard for someone to just come in and be like, oh yeah, that's actually a really good idea. Let me drop everything I'm doing right now and start doing this. Like the odds of that happening, one, is rare. And two, if someone does steal your idea, they're never going to understand the intricacies that you understand about the problem or the pain point. So it might look different. They're going to execute it differently. And I think if someone is just a copycat and like steals ideas, they probably don't have it in them to be a long-lasting founder because they're not authentic. They're not going to know what to do next. They're not going to have the next steps. And if they are just waiting on you to constantly copy, you're always going to be one step ahead of them.
So you hit 1 million in revenue in 11 months for the 2.0, correct?
Right. So we scratched the first product completely. We took it off the App Store. We started from zero. We had 0 users when we relaunched. From there, we hit 1 million in ARR, so annual recurring revenue.
And then 4 months later,
we hit 2 million.
That's impressive. What are you doing right now, like in this moment that you guys are doubling down on that you think is so effective? And what are the things that you focus on that give you the biggest return?
Listening to our customers is number one. I think that we do such a good job at listening to them, and I think that was very intentional. That was not an accident that just happened. And then now, I think the number one thing we do is we listen to our users and we move really quickly. So if our users face an issue, we're fixing that right away. Like we move fast. With that comes sometimes bugs or, you know, things that we maybe move too quickly. And then our users email us and they're like, this isn't working anymore. And we're like, oh my God, we need to fix this. So then we'll go back and, you know, fix everything. But I would rather that than have a bunch of meetings deciding what's next on our roadmap and what can we do. And then the product is sitting stale for 3 months and people are churning and people are emailing us and then it's going to customer support overseas. Like we don't do that. I still do our customer support inbox, me and Natasha and Alexis. And it has helped me so much as a leader and as the CEO and as a founder. Like hearing what our customers don't like has been the biggest thing, because when we do talk to customers, the number one thing they say is, oh my God, I love how you listen to us. And that's what I want to be known for, because if we are building a tool for social media teams and then we're not listening to social media teams, then what are we doing? That is like super, super important to us, is listening to our customers.
A lot of what you're saying is like, I'm going to just double down on what's working. Like I'm going to continue to like talk to those customers. I'm going to continue to do that until it like really solidifies it, so much so that like that part's like established, right?
Exactly. And we don't want to let that go, because the second you do, things will start to slip.
And it really does, like, I think, you know, even with our own clients, like as we've grown from day one, like, you know, Roy who, you know, our CEO, for those who are watching, he has from day one is like, we respond within 15 minutes. And we've had times where it's like, look, they know that we have a lot going on. Like, they understand, like, they know that, you know, as long as we get back to them within the hour, you know, by end of day or whatever it may be. And he's like, no, this is the standard that we offer. This is the service we provide. This is the culture that we have and the values that we hold. And more importantly, what's really interesting is that, like, from the beginning, like, Roy and I are very big on, like, this is so small, but like, we are very expressive in our like text. Like, we put smiley faces and emojis, and like, we're just like enthusiastic, you know, emailers and texters. And what's interesting is that our clients, like, that is something that like they will notice if it's not done that way, right?
Yeah.
They like that. They like specifically the enthusiasm that we bring, and they've given us those comments of like, we enjoy going to meetings with you guys. And we've heard that from several of our clients. So that being said, I do think that having that consistency and showing up, like Roy's always like reminding us what they fell in love with us at the beginning when they first started working with us. Like, we can't be that agency that just like starts letting them go because we have them.
Exactly. So the number one compliment we get from our customers is, we can tell that you listen to us because of the features that are added. Like, oh, a feature I requested last week is now in the app, and you notified me and told me that it was in there. Like, that you actually listen to your customers. And because of your customer support, we're like loyal Rella customers. Our customers are the only reason why we're here, and we owe everything to them. So that's how we really like try to reframe it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that a lot of people, I know for us, we really were in a rush to act like a big business way before we were. And I think that actually harmed us in a lot of ways. And so what do you think are the benefits to, you know, staying agile versus having sprints, for example, specifically within the app?
Yeah, so I totally agree that too many people look to these big businesses and think, oh, okay, they're doing it, so we must do it. And it's so different because these big businesses have had years of experience under their belt. They have systems, they know what works for them, they have a large team, so large teams need to work very differently than small teams. And I actually think there's such a privilege of being a small team. Like, I fear the day that we have to be bigger. Like, I love working in a small team. And so we work more in a agile way. I would definitely advise that small teams don't need to be like big teams. I love the Paul Graham, I believe it's Paul Graham, the quote of do things that don't scale, which means we do our customer support. We are very personable. The people that use us know who the team is because I'm on the social media. I'm posting about us. We live by that.
You know, speaking of social, I am really intrigued because I think that with your background, you really understand it obviously on a whole different level than most founders do. And I think that was a very big part of the success of Rella. What do you think is the future of social media?
I think we are still in the beginning stages of social media, believe it or not. I know it's like everywhere and in your face, but I do still think it's the beginning, and we're going to start seeing everything on social. Like, traditional media, I think, will kind of go away, and it's going to be replaced by things like YouTube, for example. Why would I watch a late night talk show when I can watch this?
Yeah.
On my own time with someone I'm actually interested in. It's curated for me. It came up on my algorithm. Like, why not? And with businesses, they need to start relying more on people resonating with them and relating to them and wanting to consume the media that they're creating. Every single business needs to have a creator, whether that's the founder, whether it's like an in-house creator. Attention is the currency now. Like, you have to just capture people's attention. And I also think that's how you build community, by capturing their attention, having someone be like, wait, I relate to that, or I like that, or I want to see more of that. And that's how you start building it and providing value also. And you see that now with, you go into Sephora, and 10 years ago, it was Makeup Forever. It was all of these other brands. Now you go in and it's Makeup by Mario. It's celebrity and creator-led brands now. And that's because of social media.
So let's say somebody's listening, right? And they're like, okay, fine. Like, you've convinced me. I want to grow my brand through social media next year. What would I need to do?
If you're comfortable being in front of the camera, build in public, talk about what you're building and what problem you're solving, and show people how you're doing it. It does not have to be good quality. It just has to be letting people in behind the curtain, because that's never been done before. I mean, obviously in the past few years it has been, but if you look back at Fortune 500 companies, name one that was built in public. None. You know, now we have biographies of these entrepreneurs, but they didn't share the behind the scenes. So now the next wave of these huge companies, you're going to be able to see the start of it. So that would be my number one recommendation to all founders. And if you really hate being in front of the camera, you can't do it, like you're maybe heads down founder, hands on keyboard, hire someone that can do it.
What is the metric that they are tracking?
You need to make sure that you're establishing connections with your ideal customer. So obviously you want like views and comments and all of that, but that takes time too. So don't be discouraged if you post one video and no one's watching. Like, it's one of those things where you have to be consistent with it. But I think it's about community and connection, and sometimes it's not a cut and clear metric. Like, the ROI isn't there immediately, or the metric isn't necessarily views or anything like that. I think it's more of just like, do you feel like you're building a community? Like, are people tuning in? Are they invested in this? Are they wanting to see more? And too many people stop before they see the results. It's kind of like that. I've seen this cartoon where it's like you're mining for gold, and someone, is like one chip away from a gold mine, and then they're turning around, and then there's someone else that keeps chipping away at it. And you have to keep chipping away at it. Then doing well doesn't mean 100,000 views. Like, that could mean, oh, we got like more comments than usual.
Let's say like they're posting on TikTok and they're just getting consistently like 100 to 200 views. Let's say something gets 300 views. Do they lean in to see if something like that works and just go incrementally until it climbs up to the 100,000s and to the millions? Or is it more so like try, more random things until something does go viral?
I would try random things until something does work. And I don't think it has to go viral. I think it just needs to like reach your ideal audience and have like some more engagement. Like the video for Rella, we had a video go viral, we say. It got like 60K views in the first day, which is good. Like, that's objectively good. But like, when you think viral, you think 1 million or 2 million or 3 million. For us, it was 60K, and that 7x our revenue. So eventually it ended up getting more views, but we put paid ads behind it. But organic content and building an organic community is something that I would start with, because I know some people might say like, oh, well, we're just going to run a bunch of ads and see what sticks. And that's fair. Like, you can do that and you might get a customer. But I do think nowadays, like for us, we don't run ads separate from our organic content. Like, some people make ads specifically for ads and then they post different stuff for their organic. Everything that we run an ad on has already been posted organically. And we typically only run ads on things that did well organically. So before we're wasting money spending it on ads that aren't going to perform well, we've tested it with our audience. The algorithms will tell you what your audience wants to see.
Why do you think the video that went viral went viral?
Because it didn't feel like salesy or like an ad, and it was like a relatable problem. So it was a skit. It was me pretending I was a social media client and me pretending I was also a social media manager. I had like a different outfit on and everything. Super casual, filmed on my iPhone, like nothing crazy. Being like, hey, I sent you your content. And then the social media client being like, oh, like, I can't see this, or I hate the tool that you're using, and blah, blah, blah. And it was just so relatable, because that problem is felt so deeply and so strongly with social media managers that they were like, oh my God, this is me. I've had this exact conversation before. And then at the end, I'm like, oh wait, why don't we try Rella? It does X, Y, and Z. And then the social media client was like, great, this is awesome. That was the video. It was like a funny skit that was dumb social media client, smart social media manager, found Rella as a tool that was like the common denominator for the both of them. At the end, I'm not like, try Rella for free. Like, I'm not making it an ad at all. But obviously people know. They're like, wait, what is that tool that you're showing? And it's our username, so they end up checking it out.
That being said, that's a whole other to-do now to your list. And I know for you, I mean, you literally, you do so much. You're running this, multi-million-dollar company. You have a podcast. You are consistently showing up on social media. And I am just dying to know, what does your content system look like?
I do things week by week. So I am not a big month in advance planner for content. I have a running list of content notes on my phone. So if I get a random idea throughout the day, I'll just jot it down there. So I look through that and I'm like, what can I film this week? And I find the relevant things and I put them on Rella. So obviously I use Rella for planning. And then I use our AI tool, Ella, to ask it what else I should do. And I use so many ideas that it gives me. So, and then I'll fill out my calendar and I'll write when I'm filming what the script is. I script it out. And then I usually end up filming that same day and uploading that same day. If I am not quick with it, if I'm sitting on something for too long, I'm not doing it. But I think that the best thing you can do is not overthink it. I think social media is one of those things that you have to just post. It's not a lot of risk. Okay, let's say a video flops, okay? If it's not perfect, it doesn't matter. Social media is not meant for perfection. Just get it out there and see what works.
Someone might be listening and being overwhelmed by all of this. Or oh my gosh, you filmed it all. I don't know how to do it. I don't know how to edit. I don't know how to do any of that. What is like the smallest thing that they can start with?
So I would not reinvent the wheel. I wouldn't try to, I think too many people think like, oh, I need to come up with something so different, never seen before. When you're scrolling in bed tonight on TikTok or Instagram, look through the reels and TikToks that you're watching. A lot of them are very similar. Like your algorithm is feeding you the same stuff. So it's feeding you people that are just talking to their camera, or it's feeding you whatever videos it's feeding you. For me, it's a lot of that, like talking to the camera, day in my life, all of that stuff. I don't need to reinvent the wheel. My day in my life doesn't need to be so different. Find a couple styles, save them, send them to yourself, whatever it is, and try to like replicate that style. And then what I would do is if you just have like running ideas or running thoughts in your head, film yourself. Just film yourself on your phone as if you're walking, if you're in the car, whatever it is. You might be able to use that as a piece of content. Like it didn't take you that long. There was no pressure behind it. Cut it down, avoid any pauses, get a good hook in there, maybe like re-record a hook later on or whatever, and just see how it does. And I hate to break to you, your first video is not gonna get views. Your first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, like probably not. So you need to keep posting. And I think there are some things that do require better quality, like podcasts, for example. I would not listen to a podcast with bad audio. So like you do need to invest in that if you're gonna do that, just post and see what happens. Like don't overthink it. Film, edit, and upload in the same day. And I think this podcast, for example, like I am so impressed with the quality of it. I think it's so great. It makes me want to listen to it more, watch it more on YouTube. Like there are some things that are worth investing in, but something I would do if I were you in your shoes, I would also then post behind the scenes footage on Instagram and TikTok that's not the super good quality stuff to show people like, let's peel back the curtain to get people like connected to the community side of things too. And like, I had no idea this was here. Like, this is so cool to see the behind the scenes. I wish more podcasts did that, because how many people want to start a podcast in 2026? How many people are going to start a podcast? Showing this is so cool. Like I would tune in every day.
But then why is it that I see because I think a lot of people are doing it now. Like I have a lot of friends like who are actively posting. They put their behind the scenes, they put their day in their life, and they're not performing. Is it the hook that's wrong? Because I put the like spend a day with me as a blah, blah, blah. I've done it as a director. I've done it like behind like big movie sets. Like I've done all of those things and like they don't perform. Like what is it potentially? Is it that I'm not consistent enough with it?
Are you consistent?
No, not with that content. Is that the
So
problem?
probably, yeah, because you can't just show or say what you're doing. You have to tell a story, and you're great at that. You're a director, you are so great at the story. So vlog your life, but don't say, I woke up this morning and then I went to a workout and then I started setting up the cameras and then I waited for my guest. People can see that. Like they have eyes, they can see it. I would say, I cannot believe that I'm about to be in the room with someone who did X, Y, and Z. I was so nervous. I couldn't sleep last night and this is how I'm prepping for it, blah, 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 blah. Or numbers. People love numbers. So if you can say like, we spent $1,000 to film this episode, and then like show that, so people are like, what? You spent $1,000 on a podcast episode? I need to see what was it? So like numbers like that, or I cannot believe someone flew all the way from England to come and film this podcast with me. And like that's like a stronger thing that people want to see versus spend a day in the life with me as someone that you don't know. Like that's like not as interesting.
We have to try this. Okay, in terms of, you said that you invest on paid ads on the organic. For a small company that's just starting, like what is like the bare minimum where it's even worth their time? Is like putting $100 worth it? And which platforms do you think are really worth their time?
I would start with just maybe, a couple, like $20 a day or something for a week, 2 weeks, and start testing it, seeing what's working and what's not working. So you can do paid ads as kind of like experiments on which messaging is resonating. So that has helped a lot. Or if you look at like TikTok library or Facebook's ad library, you can see what other businesses are posting and other competitors are posting, and you can see which ones are performing well. So like you can do that as an experiment too, even for your own organic content. And you have to have both paid ads and organic though. Like even if you start with paid ads and then you go organic, there has to be a balance of what you're doing to like build community, build your audience, putting paid ads to just like give it a little boost, building your community in other ways, like maybe you're doing workshops, you're hosting meetups, you're getting on calls with people. Like we created a web of marketing that says everything that where our audience is like coming in from. So they're coming in from paid ads, they're coming in from organic, they're coming in from podcasts, they're coming in from community workshops, they're coming in from founder content, like my personal content. they're coming in from word of mouth. And then we separate it out into tasks of like, okay, how are we going to optimize this? So like, how are we going to optimize word of mouth? We have our affiliate program. Okay, great. How are we going to promote our affiliate program more? Okay, podcasts. We should be pitching X amount of podcasts every week for not only for speaking things, but for sponsorships. Let's start sponsoring podcasts. Influencer marketing. How are we have like a list of things that we're doing with all of these different touch points, because if you just rely on one, I just think it can like crumble, because there's always going to be things that do better and things that do worse. And like, you need to have, I think of it as like a marketing pie.
Can you touch on how you had influencers right at first, and then you went to like smaller influencers? Can you touch a little bit on that?
Smaller influencers always outperform bigger ones. There's a few exceptions. If the bigger ones have an insanely niche community, like I'm going to shout out Tess Barclay from Busy Blooming. She does a really good job. I love her. Yeah, she's so great. And if you want to find like a content creation tips, she's your girl. But her audience is very specific with content. It's social media creators / managers that are creating content. So like that is such an ideal audience for us. We have a creator that has over 1 million followers that has posted about us multiple times. Nothing from her. Just because they have a bunch of followers does not mean they are going to convert, and they're a lot more expensive. So it's so much better to find that niche audience. And that's why I have since shifted my content to be founder content, because I'm like, why are people following me? If it's just like generic content, when brands work with me, it's not going to convert, because it's just generic lifestyle. Like it's really hard to do a good job with just like random content that like no one knows about you for. So I'm like, I'm going to go all in on founder content. It's going to weed out people that don't care, and then it's going to attract people that are founders. So now whenever people follow me, I click on them, it's been like 100% founders now, or someone interested in entrepreneurship. And I'm like, yes, thank you. Because that's like who I want my audience to be. So I think that is really helpful when the influencer you're working with is someone that either uses you already, so it's more authentic, or if they are exactly like your ideal customer.
So Steve Jobs, again, I mentioned that we recently did a video on him, and there's this speech where he talks about connecting the dots. He gave it at Stanford. And he talks about how when he looks back at his life, all of these points in the moment, they didn't make sense. But when he looks back at it, if you were to take out one of those things, he wouldn't be where he was today. So that being said, what parts of your journey were pivotal in Rella's creation?
Ever since I was a kid, I've always been very entrepreneurial before knowing what being an entrepreneur was. Like, I wanted to be a writer when I was little. So I first started wanting to be an author. That was like my first thing that I wanted.
Your first dream.
Yes, my first dream. And I think it was because, one, I loved reading, because I loved stories. Like, storytelling was my favorite thing. Then I wanted to be an actress. So that was my next dream. I went to like acting classes. I got an agent. I like went to LA for auditions. Like, that was my dream when I was a little kid, and I wanted to be on Disney Channel. Like, that was my goal. And then when I was in high school, YouTube came around, and I saw girls that were like doing their makeup on YouTube. I was like, this is so cool. Like, I think I got 3 subscribers the first day, and I was like, oh my God, I can't believe 3 people followed me. Like, that's so crazy. And then I did engineering in college because my parents really wanted me to do that, and I was like good at math and liked it. So I'm glad I did it, because I think it did make me like more of a problem solver. After college, I ended up working for a consulting company, and then I ended up quitting that consulting job because I was making double my salary. I was making $120,000 a year being an influencer, became a full-time influencer, started an agency, and that all led me to Rella. So like, if all of those things didn't happen, I feel like now I look back at my life and I'm like, that makes sense. Like, Rella is the culmination of all of those things.
For sure. Like, it is like all of them make sense together, and they make what you're doing.
And they make no sense individually.
No, they don't.
Like, if you're just like, this is this person's resume, it's like, that's really weird. But now that I'm doing what I'm doing, it does make sense.
Walk me through how you go from idea of Rella to then finding your co-founders.
Yeah, so I'm not technical. Like, I don't know how to code. So I had this idea, and in the beginning stage of any business idea that I have, I do research on it, and I'm like, how do I do this. So I was like looking up like how much does it cost? What are the next steps? And I was like, okay, so I definitely need developers to do this. This isn't like a project that I can just like assign to someone. So I asked one of my really good friends, I was like, do you know anyone at NC State that knows how to code that I could talk to, that, because I didn't know anyone. And he was like, yeah, actually this one guy that I know, one of my friends, he started a software consultancy company if you want to talk to him. And he was the first one that like didn't give me cut and dry answers of like, oh yeah, it's going to cost this much and it's going to take me this amount of time. He was like, I don't know how long this is going to take. I don't know how much it's going to cost, but like we can do this in increments and see, because we need to like scope out the like scope of work. Like he was the first one that actually laid it out as like more than just a project and of this like long-term thing. And so we started working together, and then we really loved working together. So we ended up becoming co-founders, and that's how we formed Rella. But it was a lot of interviews of like a lot of other people, and then this was one where I just like trusted my gut. Like again, I do think it's a lot of intuition. Like being a founder is making a million decisions every single day. You are not going to have all of the data, you're not going to have all of the insight. Like you just need to trust your gut sometimes and learn and make mistakes along the way.
Once you guys decided to work together, did you both go full time, or were they still working their agency? Were you still doing your agency at the time?
So they did roll that off, but then they had to get other jobs while we were fundraising, and like I was still doing social media full time as well. We didn't have any money. Like realistically, I don't know how some people like go all in with their company if they're not making money yet. I'm like, do you have like a trust fund, or like what are you doing to survive? Because yeah, they were working other jobs while they were working other like dev jobs while we were trying to fundraise. And then once we fundraised, they got paid first, and I still was making money from social media. So I was like, I want to extend runway for this company, so I'm gonna hold off until I really need to. And I got paid like a little bit in the beginning, and then when we weren't growing that much, I was like, I'm gonna wait. Like I don't want to get paid right now. So for like over 2 years, I wasn't getting paid, and I was just working on social media as my income. Once we became profitable this year, I started getting paid again in May. So
that's the reality.
Yeah, like May of 2025 is when I first started getting paid.
I don't know if you experienced this, but when I got announced on Forbes, my mom had to call my family and be like, by the way, that's her company making that money. Like she doesn't have that in her bank account, for like no one to think that I was just like swimming in all this money. The baby eats first. The business goes first. Your employees, your team, like it really is the priority in order for it to actually build and be scalable. Yeah. And I think that a lot of people don't realize, like, sure, you have this asset that is worth something, so that means something, but at the end of the day, like, you are probably the least paid employee out of everyone. You are probably working more hours than anyone else with no OT, and it's just the reality of building something. So in reality, you just keep pouring it in. Sure, eventually take some out, but you know.
Yeah, none of us are making really high salaries. Like my co-founders could get other tech jobs for much more than they are making at Rella, but it's the reality of us, wanting to build something together.
Something that outlasts you. So then here's the predicament for someone else. My current income is the thing that, funds this dream, but it's also distracting me from making real progress in this dream. What should I do?
You just have to find a balance of it. Everyone's schedule is different, but if you can work on the weekends, if you can wake up earlier, if you can go to bed later, it just depends on your situation. Like I can't tell you, oh, quit your job and go full time, because like I wouldn't recommend that. I would not recommend quitting your job and having no money and trying something that might not work, that 90% of businesses don't work. Like I wouldn't recommend putting all your eggs in one basket. I think there's nothing wrong in having side hustles. So yeah, I would try to find a way to make it work, and you might have to sacrifice, or you will have to sacrifice some areas in your life, whether that's your social life, whether that's your weekends, then you sacrifice it. But I don't think that you should just like quit and have no income, because then you're running on burnout also, and you're so stressed, and that's not the best way to run a business either.
No, totally. I completely agree. Okay, so you go on after this, you guys, while you were seeking investment, were you building the app, or did you wait to have an MVP before getting investors?
No, so we built the app before we took on investors. So we built the app, we had an MVP, we had traction, we didn't have paying customers yet, we were a free app, but we did have the app in the App Store while we raised money.
And you got the traction from social media?
Yes. So everything was organic social media. But to be honest, we had traction, but because we weren't a paid app, we were looking at vanity metrics. Like we were looking at downloads and signups, and like that doesn't matter truly. Like I don't even know how many signups we get on Rella right now. All I know is how many people converted from the free trial to paid. I think that if someone's downloading your app and you have 1 million downloads, okay, but how many people paid for it? We were on the App Store the first day, on like the App Store charts. But like that didn't really mean anything in terms of the success of the business.
Do you remember more or less how many downloads until you were able to go to investors, or could you have gone sooner even if there were no downloads?
I think we had 3,000 customers that had signed up and created an account. But again, like, did that matter if they weren't paying? We turned on paid subscriptions and got like 3 people.
The investors saw that through that, you think, at the time?
We didn't turn on paid before we raised. So that was something we actually were told, which I don't know. We raised in 2022, so I don't know if this is the advice today, but we were like, don't turn on paid yet, because then investors are going to have a lot more questions. They're going to have questions about, why was this conversion so low? What about that? When you're a free app, investors can dream.
You feel like that was a mistake? Would you do it differently now?
I don't regret anything that we did, but if I were to start a business today, I wouldn't do that. I would try not to raise money, and if I did, I would still try to make revenue right away, because I just think that like it's hard to have a sustainable business if you're not getting any money right away. And like, money is what is going to tell you if you need to pivot or not. That's going to be the growth metric. Downloads does not matter. Signups does not matter. Who is willing to pay? Who has a big enough problem that they are willing to pay for this?
That being said, how did you begin looking for investors?
So I didn't know anything about raising capital, like literally nothing. One of the best podcasts I listened to was the Startup Podcast. It's filmed like probably 10 years ago at this point, but it was so helpful. So that really put me in the understanding of like, what's an investor meeting like or anything like that. I started asking other founders, like if they would just jump on calls with me and be like, hey, can you explain to me like, what was your fundraising process like? And like, how was that? And then I would always ask the founders I was meeting if they could introduce me to their investors or any investors that they knew. So then that's how I got a lot of intros, but I would cold email most people, like cold email, cold DM. I would look on Crunchbase. I got a Crunchbase subscription. I would look at people that were similar to us and I would see who invested in them. I would look at active investors investing in pre-seed stage funds, in creator economy. Like I did so many different searches for that. And then I compiled that list and did a ton of cold outreach.
How many investors more or less would you say that you reached out to?
Oh my gosh. Well, we spoke to like 200. So I probably reached out to like 1,000. And we got 5 yeses out of 200.
So this is officially the part of the show where we want to do show and tell. And you were so gracious enough to share your pitch deck that got $1 million in fundraising, right? So yeah. Do you want to bring it out? Before we get back to the video, I would like to thank our sponsor, who is no one. We are the sponsors of our own video. And with that being said, we would really love if you could subscribe to this channel. What else was I say?
That's it.
Really? No, we can't use that.
No one's subscribing anyways. We have what news.
We're literally going to interrupt this with just that. It would really mean a lot to us if you subscribed. It really does help us create better videos, bring on great guests, and most importantly, keeping the lights on.
Okay, so this was Rella 1.0 when we were a tool for influencers. So this is no longer our product. We raised on the first version of the product and then we pivoted. We had the title slide with what are we doing? So we make it easier for content creators to run their business. We started by saying that everyone wants to be an influencer because we wanted investors to know that even if they don't understand the creator economy, this is a big deal and like investors need to be paying attention or they're going to fall behind.
This is so cool.
Yeah. And then again, to educate investors and to show them how big of a pain point this is, I show the workflow of an influencer. So they're on multiple platforms. They have all of these tools for goal tracking, planners, emails. They have spreadsheets to track things. They're creating invoices. They're using a CRM. They're using different tools to get paid. And then this is taking hours every single week. They're earning less revenue and they're spending money on a bunch of different tools. So it's really understanding that the problem is that it's fragmented. So then we go into the problem. Millions of influencers, big market, are using fragmented and inefficient tools to run their business. I also tried to compare it to other industries because, again, a lot of this was educating investors on the influencer space because they just didn't know. And all of these businesses that I show have $1 billion plus valuations, because investors want to know that this could become a $1 billion company. And then I have the solution, which was Rella 1.0. So Rella integrates with an influencer's entire workflow. So we connect and organize all the platforms. We track earnings, invoices, and estimate future revenue. And you can view and share your comprehensive analytics. It's so crazy seeing like what Rella used to look like. And then the why now. So why is now a good time? because investors want to know, like, why should they invest now? Like, what's the market looking like? The amount of influencers is increasing every year. Marketers are investing more money into influencer marketing, and content creators are the fastest growing small businesses. So I wanted investors to know, like, yes, this is a tool for individual influencers, but like they are businesses. So this is a tool for small businesses. And then I showed our traction. We had over 10,000 downloads, 5,000 community across platforms. So that was like our followers. And then we didn't spend any money on marketing. So this was to show like we got all of this traction without even spending money on marketing. Imagine what we could do if we did spend money on marketing.
Was this the slide that they cared about most, or they responded to the most, you would say?
Yes, and it's definitely the one that they had the most questions about too, because they were like, okay, you're not spending money in marketing, how are you getting customers? And they also wanted to know, like, okay, well, is it just you? Is it just your following? Because like that's going to cap out at some point. So I had to explain, like, no, we've built this community that's like that lives outside of me too. And then I said, why us? So investors want to make sure that there's founder market fit. So like, why are you the team to build it? Because like anyone can build this. So like, what makes you different? And investors are investing in the team. They know that the product will probably change. Like they know that it's going to evolve. They want to invest in the team itself. So this was where the why us came into play. For why us, I talked about myself, about how I've been an influencer since 2011. I've made it my full-time business. I quit my job when I made 2x my salary so that they know that there's money in this. In the top 6% of influencers on YouTube, spoken with hundreds of influencers about their pain points and experiences, and grew frustrated at the lack of tools made for content creators. So I explained, like, I am the right person to build this. And then this was my favorite slide. It was what our users were saying. As you can tell, we were very customer oriented from the very beginning. I added some more notes here as well, or quotes from people, so people could see like who was using us, and I would say like who they were and, you know, the type of audience that they had. I mentioned we were built for influencers by influencers, so again, how community is so important to us. And I mentioned we host unpaid and voluntary focus groups because, again, that's what I mentioned, like so many of these big companies, it's like, I'll give you $20 if you talk to us. And it's like, I don't want to have to pay for my users to talk to us. I hope my users just like want to talk to us. And then I mentioned our competitive landscape. So kind of like where we are set apart. So we're for small businesses and influencers. And then the ask, we were asking for 1.5 million at this point, but we ended up raising 1 million. That would give us 24 months of runway. And the goals would be to scale Rella and then a couple use of funds, and then meet the team. So this was the core team. So my co-founders, we now have added Natasha as a co-founder, but at this point it was the 3 of us. And yeah, that was our pitch deck.
That was awesome. That was so great. Yeah, so if you had to quantify it, what makes a great pitch?
The story. I think too many people look up Canva template pitch deck. They just like templatize it and they start putting their own stuff in it. And then they try to make the story out of the deck. And then it just doesn't sound good. You have to tell the story first, because most of the times when you're pitching in front of people, you're talking, they're paying attention to you. The slides are just extra. It doesn't have to be in order of what the standard pitch decks look like. Say it out loud and then add the slides later. And investors hear pitches all day, every day. That is their job. So how is yours going to stand out? It has to give them an emotional reaction. It cannot just be like, oh, good numbers. Like, it has to be a story that they are excited about, but like feel something towards. So you have to make that connection with them. That's why our story required a lot of education, because if we didn't have that, then like a lot of investors, it would have fallen flat. And I'm like, well, I don't feel anything towards this because I don't know. But if you're like, oh my gosh, wait, I have a kid, and my kid watches Mr. Beast all the time, and he wants to be a YouTuber. Oh, okay. Like, is this tool going to help my kid make money in the future? Like, you have to find a way to relate to them in that sense.
How do you get through 200 pitches and not quit?
Yeah, I had this motto that I stuck with that I reminded my team about. It's not if, it's when. So it's not if we raise, we're going to raise. It's just when we end up raising. And that has been my motto for so many things in life. It's not if, it's when. But it was hard because like with my co-founders, they're developers. So they're writing code, pushing an update, you can see their work. For me, yeah, I had all these meetings, but I had $0. I had no yeses. So it was like, yeah, I had these meetings with investors, and it's like, well, what came from it? Nothing.
But the progress was there. It was invisible, but it was there.
Yeah, exactly. And that was just really hard. And I think that's honestly even my role today, though. Like, a lot of the things that I'm doing, I'm not hands to keyboard coding. Like, the only output you see is like my social media content, but everything else is making deeper connections, doing things that don't scale, talking to our customers, listening to them. Like, it's not that direct output. And I think that can sometimes be hard because I'm like, am I doing a good job? Am I doing enough? What am I working on? And I think that's a challenge of being a CEO or a founder, is if you don't have that like direct output of this is what it pushed out, it's just all like, well, I hope that what I did works.
So walk me through the day. I want you to like describe it to me, the feeling. How do you find out that you get your investment? What was that moment like?
Yeah, I remember I had a meeting with our investor, with our first investor. He was like, yeah, I like this. I want to schedule another call with you. So it was fast. Like it was like a Monday, let's say. By Friday, I had another call with him. He also was like, I want to talk to someone that's used the product and like see how they like it. So I gave him contact for one of our customers. And then he called me that day and was like, like Friday, like 5 days later, and was like, okay, yeah, we want to invest. We're going to do these terms and we're willing to put $250,000 in. And I was like, okay, like acting as if like I've done this before. I was like, okay, yeah, that sounds good. Let me talk to the team. Like just very much on the inside, I was like, oh my God, like, thank you, God. Like this is, wow. Like I can't believe that someone said, yeah, I've never heard those words before. So I was so excited. And then he wired the money the next week. And like, I didn't know what it was like. I was like, do they just like wire you the money? Like, how do you get this money? Like, I've never had that much money in a bank account. Like, I don't know what $1 million looks like in a bank. And yeah, they just wire it to you. So it was like the safe was signed and he helped us close the round. Like that first investor, we took 7 months to get that first check. After that, we closed the $1 million in like a month and a half.
It just takes one yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and time and not giving up.
So you get this investment, right? And then you guys are, on your way. You had 24 months, you said?
Yeah, 24 months of runway.
Okay.
It ended up lasting longer though. We were very conservative with it.
Which is smart because I feel like most companies, I feel like it's the opposite. They get really excited and they hire all these people. And the fact that you were already very mindful to stay small really probably saved you.
1,000,000% it did. I'm like so thankful for that.
So in those 24 months, you just focus on building. You guys are, really focusing on getting those users. What are some mistakes that you made other than, like audience and all of that? But like, are there any other mistakes that you made along the way during that season?
We made so many mistakes. We hired someone that wasn't the right hire at one point, and we had to let them go a month later after hiring them. That was a huge mistake. Listening to people when they're like, this is such a good idea. If only you had this one more feature, then I would use you. And then we would spend 2 weeks building this feature for this person, and then we're like, here you go. And they're like, oh, actually I meant if you had this other feature. And we're like, oh. Like it was just like we constantly were like chasing people to like beg them to use the product, and that's probably when it's not a good idea. But yeah, we were like building for too many people. Yeah, we made a lot of mistakes, but I think we made more good decisions than bad ones. So those good decisions outweighed the bad ones. And the good ones were really being conservative with our money, not giving up, realizing when it's time to pivot, which was like the scariest thing. All of those things like outweighed all the tiny bad decisions that we made.
And now we come to that part of your story where you approaching the 24 months. At that point, have you guys pivoted yet to Rella 2.0?
No. So we were not growing. We had money until January, and this was in May. So we had like 6-7 months left of runway. And I remember thinking like, well, we have to raise again. Like we have to raise again because we don't have money left. But like I started pitching again. I probably had like a month of pitching and like having a whole new pitch deck, everything. And then my co-founder Connor was like, what are we doing? Like we don't have the numbers. Like we're not gonna raise on this product. Like we're just not. And I felt that way too, but I didn't want to say it because I felt like that would be like giving up. And so he was the one that was like, I think you need to stop raising, and we all need to come as a team and work on a new version of this product. Let's have a Hail Mary of trying to get something to work. And then if that doesn't work, we can truly say that we did everything we could and we gave it a good run.
So at this point, you had no idea what that new thing was?
No. We just knew that we needed to start something new. We came up with it pretty quickly. We sat down. Really the conversation was like, okay, who is going to be our new like target customer? And we discovered that by like who's willing to pay. Social media managers. Social media managers have the biggest problem. They want a tool that they can plan their content, they can send content to their clients without their clients having any friction. And then they want to be able to distribute it amongst all the social media platforms. And that was like very simple, easy to understand. We modeled the UX after like project management tools. Again, not reinventing the wheel. Honestly, in the beginning, you should kind of look like other tools because then they're familiar with it. There's not a learning curve. And then we took 2 months and we built that. So we built Rella 1.0 in like a year. And then we built Rella 2.0 in like 2 months. We kept saying like, why didn't we do this sooner if only we had more time? We had until January, like until we were like zilch, like out of money.
So what happened next?
We launched in August. It got a good amount of awareness, like not a ton, but we got, I think our first month, we maybe made like $3,000 or less. Like the most money we ever made on our first product, I think we had a $5,000 month, maybe once. Like we were not making money. I remember with Rella 1.0, I would like text my family and be like, can someone please buy an annual plan so we can hit like this number this month? Like that's how bad it was.
It's like me with my mom and the views. I'm like, watch from every computer, please.
Literally. So then we relaunched in August and did better than, you know, what we saw for the previous app for like when just relaunching. And then in September, we hit like, I don't know, maybe again around 3,000 or something. I don't fully remember all of the numbers. And then October is when we hit 3,500. So we saw slight growth, but it wasn't enough. And again, we had runway until January. So this is October and we're only making 3,500. So in October, we had $25,000 left in the bank. We had nothing left. And for a startup, that's really not a lot. We were paying 3 people, like Natasha, Nick, and Connor. We're getting paid with that. So we had 2 months. So we decided that things aren't working and we're gonna have to shut down. So this was after the relaunch already. We told our investors, I called all of our investors and I was like, we're shutting down the company in January. You know, we tried. Our investors were amazing about it. They were like, you know, this happens. Like, we commend you for like trying as hard as you did. They're like, if you ever started something else, we would back you. Like they were like so great. And I think it's because investors just want to see that you tried. Like they just want to see that you didn't blow their money on stupid stuff and that you actually were like trying. And then my co-founders were applying for new jobs.
So tell me about where you, like how you were feeling in that time.
It was probably one of the hardest times that we ever had to go through because it was like a baby, you know, it was like a living, breathing thing, something we worked so hard on. It was my identity as a founder. Like, it was like, I am a business owner. Like, that's what people know me as now. Like, I was embarrassed because I built in public, and to then show like, oh, it didn't work out. What am I going to do when I don't have this? Like, it was also like a crutch. And then I didn't know where to go from here. I didn't know what the next year would look like. It was like a road with no destination for the first time in my life. And it truly was one of the darkest weeks of my life when we decided that we were gonna have to shut down the company. And then I kind of got to acceptance of being like, we're all gonna be fine, and like businesses fail, and I did everything I could. Like I just had to think like logically about it and not emotional about it. So I kind of like numbed it a little bit.
Was it to cope?
I think so. It was very much like, I'm not going to think about the future. Like, I didn't even know what I was going to do in 2025 because this was, again, end of 2024. I had no idea what I was going to do. I was just like, I'm not going to think about it. I'm just going to live like day to day. So it was a weird time when we were still showing up to work. We were still doing things knowing that the end was near because we're like, what's the point? Like, if a customer had a bug, we were like, what's the point? Like we're literally out of business in 2 months. What are we doing? And I was like, no, have to have the attitude that we're not going to be out of business. So this conversation happened on a Thursday in October. Friday, I talked to Natasha and our investors. Monday, that video went viral. So 3 days later.
Did you think it was going to go viral when you were filming it?
No, I had no idea because at this point we had given up. Like, we were pretty down in the dumps. Yeah, it was more of like, well, we're just posting it. So no, I did not think it, but I am very persistent. I don't like to give up. So even though we pretty much threw our hat in the ring and we were like, I think this company is shutting down in January, we still continued. And that video, when we thought we were shutting down, is what ended up skyrocketing us. And again, it got 60K views in the first day. Like, it wasn't crazy. It wasn't anything like insane. I remember going through our subscriptions, and like usually we would have like one person that signed up for like a free trial a day. Some days we wouldn't have anyone. Some days we'd have 3 people. Like, if we had 5 people sign up for a free trial, I was like, whoa, that's a good day for us. I remember reloading our subscriptions, and all of a sudden, like, everyone on Stripe, if you can see, like, you can see the date on Stripe of all of the free trials, and everyone on that first page, which is 20 free trials, was the same day. And I was like, am I reading that right? I'm like, this is a bug. Like, this is like not right, because we always get just like one person. And I would refresh and then like new people. And I was like, what? And I texted the team and I'm like, why did 30 new people just sign up for a free trial? And then I looked and the video I posted was getting views. And I was like, I cannot believe that these people are signing up. And Natasha was like, why are the demos booked? Like the demos were booked out for that week. I was like, whoa. And then we got emails, like some people were emailing us questions. And I was like, something is happening. Like this is crazy. And it didn't stop. That month, every single day we were getting 20 new people, 30 new people. Like it was like every day we were growing. And I was like, well, we have to wait 2 weeks to see if they convert because we have a 2-week free trial. So we're like, let's see if in 2 weeks they convert.
God, that's so stressful.
I had no idea. Like obviously I could see if they were like canceling right away, but it didn't look like it. And I was like, this is kind of crazy. So then in November, we went from making $3,500 in October. In November, we made over $21,000 that month from the free trials. And then in December, I think we made like $28,000. And then in January, we hit like 30-something thousand. February, we were profitable. Like it happened fast. And we were like, whoa, like we have more time than January. So like, let's keep doing this. And again, I was like, is this just like a fluke? Like, is this just kind of like a flash in the pan? Like how long can we sustain this? So we were still very conservative with our burn. Like I was not paying myself until May, even though we hit profitability in February. I was like, we need to keep this up.
You know, I think I really want to point this out because I think a lot of people will say, oh, that was lucky, but it was not luck.
I think so too. And it was one of those things where a lot of times I'm like, dang, why didn't we make the pivot earlier? Why didn't we just start with this product? Why didn't we just start with this? And I'm like, we would have made the same mistakes we did Rella 1.0 just with a new product if we didn't, because like Connor and Nick became way better developers over those 2 years. Like they made a better product. I became a better like leader and CEO. All of those learnings and lessons from Rella 1.0 is what shaped Rella 2.0. And I think if we just started with Rella 2.0, it would not have the same outcome that it did. Yeah, it was a very long time coming.
All right, lightning round. What do you say no to?
Features that expand us horizontally. So if it's like not something that we can go deeper in with our customer base and exposes us to like a whole new audience, we say no to that.
Next question. What's the anatomy of a good hook?
Something that says, oh, I relate to this. I need to stop and watch. A number that is big and fascinating. Or a hot take.
What's the worst piece of advice you've gotten in business?
One of the pieces of advice that I really hated when we were fundraising is, oh, if you can't fundraise within 6 weeks, then you're not going to fundraise. I got that told so many times, and that was really discouraging to me because mine lasted like 7 months before I got my first check. So that was very bad advice.
You are an example to, I think, so many people who have a dream. It doesn't matter what it is. I don't think it has to only be in the tech space. I don't think it even has to just be in business. I think in general, more people, if they had your ability to just do it, I feel like there would be a lot more people on the other side of their dreams being able to talk about it like you have. So I appreciate you so much. And
oh my gosh, thank you so much. Thank you for having me. This was so great. Like I've never done a podcast like this before. And now I want to get my studio set up like this. So
we can help. We could help. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, guys, we are diving into the anatomy of Natalie's dream. We are going to be going through all of the principles that popped up in her journey. And because there are a lot of principles that came up in Natalie's journey, specifically principles that we've talked about in previous episodes, we are going to list them all right here. What we're going to do is highlight the ones that we feel are the most important to highlight for you. And with that being said, let's get into the first one, which is skill stacking. Skill stacking is basically this principle that these individual skills that may seem random to us at first, once you put them together, they form a stack. And in that stack is what gives us leverage into succeeding. Normally, when we talk about a jack of all trades, they're looked at as people who are aimless. They are not really focused in one specific area. And I think in today's society, we favor specialists. And in Natalie's journey, I think it's really evident that she was doing a lot of different things, right? She started off studying engineering, she became an influencer, and now she's doing a tech company, right? And all of these things in her journey, as we spoke about, seem so unbelievably random. But the funny thing is when you really look at what she's doing today, all of them were serving her purpose. All right, number 2, speed to action. I think Natalie's biggest strength is that she doesn't overthink things. I know that in putting it in practice, it feels a little reckless. It feels like I'm not doing the research to actually do the right steps to get to where I want. But in reality, I think that
honestly, the thought before action sometimes is what screws the process up. I'll give you an example. Lately, we've been really trying to commit to one episode every single week. And at first, it really felt like, what if the thought behind the videos, the teasers, are going to suffer because we're doing this? But in reality, by not allowing myself to overthink it, what it really is doing is allowing us to test different things that will lead us to success, which leads us to the success loop. This principle is basically that you take action, you fail, and then you pivot. And you do that over and over again until that failure turns into success. What we're seeing with the most successful people is that they go through the success loop over and over and over again, and they do it in short windows of time. We did an episode about Steve Jobs, and he talks about how you want to shrink that time from idea to execution. And the success loop is really the way to do that. All right, let's move on. The next principle is the skateboard principle. Basically, the skateboard principle is that if you have an idea, right, you don't want to rush to build the full thing. You want to start with something that's just going to get you to point B. So let me explain. If you want to build a car, you shouldn't go about it by building a wheel and then another one and then a window. You should go about it by building a skateboard first, and then a scooter, and then a motorcycle, and then a car. What you want to do is you want to build a product or an MVP that's going to allow you to get from point A to point B. In Natalie's case, I think what's really interesting in Rella 1.0, she didn't build the skateboard. The team was trying to build the car. You might remember that Natalie talks about how they were trying to build for everyone, and they had all of these different features in their original app. But in reality, her original concept was about solving all of these problems, right? And what's interesting is it wasn't solving one problem. It was trying to solve too many. And that's really what the car was. It's important that if you're just starting your passion project or your company, that building a product that solves one specific problem is generally the way to start before you start adding all of these other features and services that ultimately will be your car. You want to narrow your tests, really understanding what is really your final destination here, right? Great. Scale it all the way back and start with something smaller. I think that it's so easy nowadays to think that we have to do so many things to actually stand out. If you're building a product, you're not going to be able to successfully build the right features if you're doing and building all of them at the same time. Because by every feature and every complexity that we add to our initial project, we're creating just different success loops all at the same time. And it makes it really hard to manage. The less complexity we add to our goals, the more likely that we're going to be able to go through that success loop effectively. The skateboard principle reminds us that we want to stay as simple as possible. But then's the question, which skateboard do I choose? What is the first feature or the first part of my project that I should really isolate my attention on? Well, I'll say that one way is to really understand what out of all of these things will give me the highest leverage to get to the next step. Meaning, if I'm trying to choose between which platforms I want to focus on, well, which one do I ultimately want to get to? And B, which is the one that if I were able to actually successfully get through the success loop, would be more likely that I could get through the others. And if that doesn't make it clear for you, I do think that you have to understand that you're doing the best that you have with the information that you have now. Once you have new information that disproves that this is wrong, then you move on. But I do think that you have to give yourself time within that success loop to make sure that you've exhausted all options before you pivot. All right, next we have superstars. The thing about superstars is these are A players. These are individuals that you surround yourself with within your company or organization, within your career, that will help you get to the next level. Superstars are proactive, they have initiative, they get shit done. And I don't just mean effective workers. I mean, like, these are actually people who are playing on the same playing field as you, or ideally even better. Recently, I watched a masterclass with Kim Kardashian where she was talking about something absolutely wild, that she built KKW, one of her first makeup lines, to $1 billion company with 4 people. You would have thought that she hired all of these different people to actually build a company to get that valuation. And here's the thing in Natalie's story that I think is really important. Because she found the right superstars, she was able to keep her team small and nimble, which ultimately gave her more runway. It's also the reason that she was able to even build a company to the place that it's at right now. Stephen Bartlett says that if you want to be a CEO or run something, you have to be vigilant about recruiting the right people who are going to increase your likelihood of success. And if you're in a position where you can't really pay a lot of money and you think that you can't find a superstar, there are other things to offer. Remember, superstars are attracted to growth. And that growth can be financial growth, it can be career growth, it can be an opportunity to own something. You just have to think about the kind of A player you want and what their goal might be. All right, so our next principle is strategic partners, which I'm going to go through very quickly. A strategic partner is different than a superstar in the fact that these individuals are people that you actually partner up with in your business, right? They either have capital to invest in, they have existing systems or audience or access to something that would be very difficult for you to acquire on your own. And in Natalie's case, that looked like an investor. And this investor not only gave her the capital that she needed, but also helped her find other investors so that she could actually make this dream come true. And when we talk about the principle of strategic partnerships, what we realize is there is generally another principle that follows, and that is undeniable proof. Undeniable proof is how you get the strategic partner. Now, there are different ways to create undeniable proof, but it's exactly what it sounds like. You are giving the proof so that people can't deny that this will be successful. And for Natalie, it was they created an MVP, they brought it to market, and enough for them to get enough downloads where investors weren't doubting if it was actually going to work. They actually had the evidence to prove that it would. And I'll be honest, as our company, we have an app, and when we were going to investors, it was a lot harder to sell our app originally because we hadn't collected any users. We had no data. We had no undeniable proof. And therefore, no strategic partners were interested in investing in this. Strategic partners like certainty. So you need to provide that to them through this proof. All right, moving on to our next principle, which is your customer is your co-founder. Now, I'll be honest, this particular principle, I totally stole it from Masterclass with Kim Kardashian, where she was talking about how her customers help her build her businesses, right? And she includes her customers in the choices that she makes for it. And what's interesting is that is exactly what we heard Natalie bring up over and over and over again in this interview. She was talking about how she includes her users in every decision and every feature that they make. From the very beginning, she was doing that. We actually saw in our last interview with Juan Meisel, who quite literally didn't even build his MVP first. He just built it with his consumer. I think there's a lot of times that we have to be honest with ourselves that when we create things, how often are we actually thinking about ourselves? And we get caught up in so much in what we want and what we believe people need. And we forget to ask and look at what others really want. And I think that this applies to more than business. I think this applies to any dream that you are creating, and understand how is it that me bringing this dream to life is going to affect other people. Natalie talks about building in public. Well, I think a lot of people build in public because they either think that they have to or because they just want to share their experiences. I think we get so wrapped up in finding the right superstars or doing the right things in order to build our dreams that we forget that the people that we're building our dreams for, they might have a lot more answers than anyone else. And by almost looking at your customers as your co-founder of your dream and actively reaching out to them and actively trying to get feedback, you are more likely to create something that's actually going to resonate. And look, if you are creating your dream to just express yourself or to just create something that you want to say, that's totally fine. But you have to understand that you are doing this for yourself. Now, if you're creating something for other people, then I think it's only right that we include them in our own dreams. At least that's how I feel about it. All right, moving on to our next principle, which is to evaluate the right metrics. Natalie was talking about how we get so caught up in metrics like views that we forget that there are other ways to measure success. And arguably, there are more important metrics that we should be analyzing so that we can actually increase our chances of success, okay? Now, she talks about how she had a lot of downloads, but it wasn't converting into actual sales. She also talks about how a video could get a lot of views, but it didn't necessarily convert into downloads. So recently, I want to talk about how this principle already has helped me so much. And so a couple nights after this interview, I go home and I'm in my pajamas and I decided, screw it, I'm just going to make a TikTok, right? And honestly, I did it because of this interview. And I'll play it right now so that you guys can see.
Where are all the people out there who are currently right now in the process of building something, whether it's a podcast or a business or an idea you have? Where are all those people? Because I need to connect with you and I just need my own community to vent to, because building something is so fucking hard. Also, it's super lonely, which is why I am doing this. So if you feel lonely or this resonates with you at all and you're in the process of chasing something, hit me up.
At first, it didn't really take off. It had like maybe a couple hundred views. But then I realized something. We were getting a lot of comments. And also, I was getting a lot of follows. And when I looked at it today, our video that has, I think, around 300,000 views, I'm going to pull up the numbers right now because I really want to like stress like how crazy this is. But to date, our most viral video on TikTok is around 309,000 views. It converted into 301 followers. This current video, the one that I spent significantly less time on, doesn't have as many views. It has currently converted to 440 new followers. Now, that might not seem like a lot, but not only is that more followers, but they are more engaged followers. Because since posting that, I have had really great conversations with the people who have been in the comments. They have been DMing me, and now there's more of a relationship. And the thing is, I wouldn't have realized this if it wasn't because I started to look at different metrics. Now, if Natalie hadn't told me this, I don't know if I would have really evaluated that video as like a true success. And while it, again, doesn't have the most amount of views, it has the most amount of qualified connections. And that matters way more. Because at the end of the day, you could have 1 million views with people who honestly don't really care and aren't going to be huge supporters of your work. Or you could have only 100 people, but they are die-hard supporters who will back anything that you put out. I think that looking at your progress and really looking to see what are the metrics that I really need to be evaluating, I think that community is probably the best one. Which brings me to my next principle, which is to find the right audience. The right audience, in theory, shouldn't just be people who download your app. They should be people who are willing to pay for that app. And so, sure, they could have that pain point, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to do something about it. And I think that that's where, when she realized that, yes, influencers have this pain point, but in reality, they're not the right audience because they're not willing to pay for my solution. But the social media managers, they are. And sure, that might be a smaller group of people, but that's what made her company profitable. And this brings us to the last principle. This is a principle that has come up before, but I want to add like a little slash to this principle, and it's to know when to quit/pivot. We made a whole video before about knowing when to pivot. But I think that Natalie's story, the thing that we can learn the most from her is the fact that with just such a short amount of time to spare, when she genuinely could have given up because she was about to run out of money, they still tried something new. They didn't give up on the success loop, and she pivoted. She saw that there was an opportunity there, and she was like, I have nothing to lose, so let me try it. Now, there are 3 ways to know when to pivot, and it's that you have no momentum, diminishing returns, or new information. And I think that in Natalie's case, she had all 3. Their app wasn't moving forward. They were seeing diminishing returns on what they were actually doing. But the most important one is that she had new information. She was seeing that social media managers were willing to pay. And I think that as opposed to trying to force influencers and change their behavior, it's accepting people for where they're at and listening to your customers. A lot of people in the moment may feel like that's giving up on the dream, but we can't hold on to the dream so tightly that we forget why we built it in the first place. And I think that when we look at this principle, it's weird because it feels like it contradicts our principle of persistence. Sometimes quitting and pivoting is persistence. It just might look different than how we thought it was going to look. Natalie pivoting was her not giving up on her dream. She didn't stop throwing shots until the buzzer went off. There were many moments where I think that she saw the score on the scoreboard and she was like, well, we're gonna lose. But she still kept playing the game. And I think that when it comes to our dream, that we have to understand that at any moment things can shift and it could happen at the last possible second. And so if there is some part of your dream that you really believe that this is the only way to become successful, that any other way would be selling out, leaving your dream behind, I want you to ask yourself, why are you in this game to begin with? And in Natalie's case,
It was building a company that she felt was going to help other people. It just might have been a different group of people than she thought. And so if things are not working the way you thought, if your dream is looking a lot more challenging than you believed, it doesn't necessarily mean that you are not meant for that dream. It just means you may need to try a different route of getting there. And I think that we have to be okay with the fact that that may not happen in the time that we thought. She made that video in the season where she had just kind of almost accepted in a way that she may lose this game, but yet she still filmed it. And I find it interesting that when we kind of are almost unattached a bit, when we've kind of accepted that we gave it our best and we're just gonna do it, not really necessarily thinking that this is gonna be the one, that somehow that's normally when it is the one. And I think that persistence isn't staying in the game when you believe that you're going to win. Persistence really looks like staying in the game when you don't believe you're going to win and you just do it anyway. That's persistence. And so I realized that lately in this channel, I 100% am in that phase where I don't know if this is really going to work. I doubt every single second of this, even making this video, but I'm showing up anyway because I know that when I look at success stories like Natalie, that's what they did. They didn't leave the court just because the score was not what they expected. They didn't leave the court when they were losing. She would have only left the court when the game was over and the buzzer rang and the lights were off. But until then, the game is not over. And in reality, the game is not really over until you determine that it is. No one's gonna kick you out of that court unless you really want to leave it. And so, as cliche as it is for me to say this, just keep playing the damn game, because at any moment, one of those balls just might make it. And you'll finally reach the anatomy of your dream. All right, guys, that's enough basketball analogies for me. And until then, we will be here every single week. All right, guys, I will see you in the next one.